Good morning, students. Today we will discuss in operating system lecture series methods for handling deadlock. So let's start. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about deadlock, and in the deadlock, we have also discussed what do you mean by deadlock, deadlock characterization, okay, and in this we will discuss the method for handling deadlock. So we can use a protocol to prevent or avoid deadlock, ensuring that the system will never enter a deadlock. Okay, so we can allow the system to enter a deadlock state, detect it, and recover it. We can ignore the problem altogether and pretend that deadlocks never occur in the system. This solution is used by most operating systems, including Unix. So the mainly two things which we will discuss, that is deadlock prevention and deadlock avoidance. So there are three ways of handling deadlocks. Deadlock prevention or avoidance do not allow the system to get into a deadlock state. As I have told you earlier that we can allow the system uh, that we can use a protocol to prevent or avoid deadlock, ensuring that the system will never enter a deadlock state. First point. Second, we can allow the system to enter a deadlock state, detect it and recover it. Third, we can ignore the problem altogether and pretend that deadlock will never occur in the system. This solution is used by most operating systems, including Unix. So deadlock detection and recovery, ignore the problem altogether if deadlock only occur once in a year. So the third one is the case when if the deadlock only occur once in a year or so, it may be better to simply let them happen and reboot as necessary than to incur the constant overhead and system performance penalties associated with deadlock. So if if it is occurring once in a year, then it is very not a very big problem to the reboot the system and just performing and just prevention the deadlock. So this is the approach that both Windows and Unix take. So there are actually three ways. First one, deadlock prevention or avoidance. That is, do not allow the system to get into a deadlocked state. Do not allow the system to get into the deadlock state. First. Second, deadlock detection and recovery. First of all, detect the deadlock and then recover. Abort a process or preempt some resources when deadlocks are detected. Identify which processes are taking part of the deadlock. So you just preempt that resources that deadlock are detected. And third one is the deadlock ignorance. Ignore the problem altogether. So there are actually three ways. First is deadlock avoidance. So in order to avoid deadlocks, the system must have additional information about all processes. Mean to say the system should have additional information about all the processes. In particular, the system must know what resources a process will or may request in the future. Deadlock detection is fairly straightforward, but deadlock recovery requires either aborting processes or preempting resources. So deadlock detection you can say is straightforward or easy, but deadlock recovery requires either aborting the process, we will have to abort some processes or preempting resources, neither of which is an attractive alternative. So, I mean to say, neither of which is not a good solution. So, if deadlocks are neither prevented nor detected, then when a deadlock occurs, the system will gradually slow down as more and more processes become stuck waiting the resource currently held by the deadlock and by other waiting processes. Unfortunately, this slowdown can be indistinguishable from a general system slowdown when a real-time process has heavy computing needs. So you can say, in another words, you can say if a system does not employ either a deadlock prevention or a deadlock avoidance algorithm, then a deadlock situation may occur. In this environment, the system can provide an algorithm that examines the state of the system to determine whether a deadlock has occurred and an algorithm to recover from the deadlock. Deadlock prevention. Deadlock can be prevented by preventing at least one of the four required conditions. First one, new one is by preventing at least one of the four required conditions. Whatever these four required conditions, so you just preventing at least one. That is, either you prevent mutual exclusion or hold and wait or no preemption or circular wait. So if let's consider the first case, that is the mutual exclusion. The mutual exclusion condition must hold for non-shareable resources. For example, a printer cannot be simultaneously shared by several processes. Shareable resources, on the other hand, do not require mutually exclusive access and thus cannot be involved in a deadlock. Read-only files are a good example of a shareable resources. If several processes attempt to open a read-only file at the same time, they can be granted simultaneously access to the file. A process never needs to wait for a shareable resource. In general, however, we cannot prevent deadlocks by denying the mutual exclusion condition. Some resources are intrinsically non-shareable. Second is hold and wait. To hold and wait, to ensure that the hold and wait condition never occurs in the system, we must guarantee that whenever a process requests a resource, it does not hold any other resources. So if a process, whenever a process requests a resource, it should be, clear that it does not hold any other resource. One protocol that can be used requires each process to request and be allocated all its resources before it begins execution. We can implement this provision by requiring the system calls requesting resources for a process precede all other system calls. An alternative protocol allows a process to request resources only when the process has none. Mean to say the process has no resources. A process may request some resources and use them before it can request any additional resources. It must release all the resources that it is currently allocated. So, to differentiate between these two, we consider a process that copies data from a tape drive to a disk file, sorts the disk file, and then prints the result to a printer. If all resources must be requested at the beginning of the process, then the process must initially request the tape drive, disk file, and printer. It will hold the printer for its entire execution, even though it needs the printer only at the end. And the second method allows the process to request initially only the tape drive and disk file. It copies from the tape drive to the disk, then release both the tape drive and the disk file. The process then must then again request the disk file and the printer. After copying the disk file to the printer, it releases these two resources and terminates. So in the in the first resource utilization may be low, and in the second case, starvation is possible. Third one is the no preemption. So the third necessary condition is that there be no preemption of resources that have already been allocated. To ensure that this condition does not hold, we can use the following protocol. If a process holding some resources and requests another resources that cannot be immediately allocated to it, then all resources currently being held are preempted. So these resources are implicitly released. The preempted resources are added to the list of the resources for which the resource is waiting. The process will be restarted only when it can regain its old resources as well as the new ones that it is requesting. And third one is the circular wait. So fourth one is the circular wait. So the fourth and final condition for the deadlock is the circular wait condition. One way to ensure that this condition never holds is to impose a total ordering of all resource types and to require that each process request resource in an increasing order. Like, let's say R is a resource set R1, R2, Rn with a set of resource type. We assign to each resource type a unique integer number. Okay, so let's say a resource type tape drive, we will assign a number 1, printer a number, let's say 12, disk drive a number 5. So likewise, a number will be assigned, and after that, when we are assigning the number, after that the process can request instance of the resource type Rj if only f of Rj is greater than f of Ri. So if several instances of the same resource type are needed, a single request for all of them must be issued. Okay. So here we should also note one point that the function, let's say f is a printer that we have already discussed that f is a function of a printer. Let's say that the number assigned is 12. So the function f should be defined according to the normal order of the usage of the resources in a system. Since the tape drive is usually needed before the printer, it would be reasonable to define f tape drive is less than f printer. Since the printer is needed at the last, as we have discussed the case, so suppose if we are using tape drive, disk drive, and printers, we will assign a tape drive 1, number 1, disk drive 5, and printer we are using at the last, so we will assign a number 12 to the printer. Okay. So next is the deadlock avoidance. The general idea behind deadlock avoidance is to prevent deadlocks from ever happening. By preventing at least one of the aforementioned conditions, this requires more information about each process and tends to lead to low device utilization. Then that process is just not started or the request is not granted. A resource allocation state is defined by the number of available and allocated resources and the maximum requirements of all process in the system. So deadlock avoidance, actually there are the three states of the deadlock avoidance. One is the safe state, another is the resource allocation graph algorithm, and third one is the Banker's algorithm. We will also discuss Banker's algorithm in detail in the next lecture. Here we will discuss the two cases, that is the safe state and resource allocation graph algorithm. However, we will also discuss some part of the Banker's algorithm, or you can say the initialization of the Banker's algorithm. However, the Banker's algorithm in detail we will discuss in the next lecture. So safe state, when a state is called safe, a state is safe if the system can allocate all resources requested by all processes up to their stated maximum without entering a deadlock state. If the system can allocate all resources requested by all processes up to their stated maximum without entering a deadlock, then that state is called a safe state. Second, when a state is safe if there exists a safe sequence of the processes P0, P1, P2, Pn such that all of the resource requests for Pi can be granted using the resource currently allocated to Pi and all processes Pj where j is less than I. So if a safe sequence does not exist, then the system is an unsafe state which may lead to a deadlock. So all if the if there is a safe state, then it is okay. If this is an unsafe state, so unsafe state leads to a deadlock. So we should also know that a safe state is not a deadlock state. Conversely, a deadlock state is an unsafe state. Not all unsafe states are deadlock. However, in this figure, in the given figure, an unsafe state may lead to a deadlock as long as the state is safe. The operating system can avoid unsafe and deadlock states. In an unsafe state, the operating system cannot prevent processes from requesting resources such that a deadlock occurs. The behavior of the processes controls unsafe states. Okay, so we can say here this another point, that is the resource allocation graph algorithm. So we can use the resource allocation graph to for deadlock avoidance. Okay, so if you have a resource allocation system with only one instance of each resource type, a variant of the resource allocation, can be used for deadlock avoidance if they are having only one, resource. Suppose that a process Pi request resource Rj, the request can be granted only if converting the request is Pi tends to Rj to an assignment is, that is Rj tending to Pi, does not result in the formation of a cycle in the resource allocation graph. Note that we check for safety by using a cycle detection algorithm. So an algorithm for detecting a cycle requires an order of n square operation where n is the number of processes in the system. If no cycle exists, then the allocation of the resources will leave the system in a safe state. So if a, so as and they let this. So when a process is start up, it must state information of resources up to the amount available on the system. When a request is made, the scheduler determines whether granting the request would leave the system in a safe state. If not, then the process must wait until the request can be granted safely. So these are some of the references, and the next topic we will discuss as we Banker's algorithm with example, deadlock detection and recovery from deadlock. Thank you. Thank you, students, for patience